Hey guys, Carolyn Crowmeans, and welcome back to the Quit Getting Screwed podcast, where we talk all about all the ways not to get screwed in the construction industry. And today I have a very interesting guest who's got some background in real estate and construction, all the things. Mr. Joe, sorry, let me start over again. Jeff, not Joe. I'm looking at my notes. Let me do this again. All right. Hi guys, Carolyn Crowmeans, and welcome back to the Quit Getting Screwed podcast, where we talk about all the ways not to get screwed in the construction industry. And today I have a real estate construction expert with me, Mr. Jeph Burnett. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
And you're the owner of Valhalla Ventures?
Yep. Valhalla Ventures, reguideservice.com.
Gotcha, which we're going to get into exactly what that company does here in a second. But take a few minutes and tell me about your background and how you got into construction and real estate and have got where you are now.
Okay. I was very fortunate to be born to a poor mom who didn't have a lot of money. So she had the foresight to buy a nice house and buy nice property. She didn't necessarily buy them the right way. So by the time I was 12, I pretty much figured out that you buy real estate and you are done. That's it. You have to put all your money into that. You're never going to have anything nice. Your renters are going to constantly be yelling at you. So I didn't want to ever do real estate. I was just going to do something simple. I started a lawn business at 12, really just because I wanted more than $100 to buy school clothes every year. And then whenever I was 16, 17, I met a real estate investor who hired me to do a lot of his jobs. And he sat me down one day and said, hey, if you ever sell this, you don't own anything. You have some crappy pieces of equipment. You don't even have a driver's license, or you don't have a car at the time. You don't have anything. And so it really got me thinking, and I started putting together contracts with all these people that I was cutting their grass for. So it was a 12-month contract. Every month they paid me the same amount regardless. During the winter months, I did different things than I did during the summer months. Then I was almost 18. I sold that business for like $70,000.
Wow.
And again, I had nothing. I had no equipment that I sold them. I had no vehicle that I sold them. I just sold them my contracts, which was the HOA, a bunch of different people in the neighborhood. And then I was like, I'm rich. I'm never working again. And you people can kiss my behind. And I decided to move up to Oregon for a little bit, help my grandfather. Learn to do a little bit of handyman stuff, but mostly what cuss words to use when you miss the nail. So then I moved back here, decided to start a handyman business just because I didn't like going in people's houses. People are weird and creepy and gross. So I wanted to stay out of their house. I was doing fences, decks, ran into another investor who basically said, hey, people are weird and gross. If you want to go to my houses, they're empty. I need you to do make readies for me. I was very honest with him. I told him I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to tile. I didn't know how to paint. I mean, I could kind of figure it out, I guess, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so he just let me figure it out. And I started with small jobs, like a broken tile, and I would chip it out and wind up breaking like half the bathroom floor up on accident. Just mistake after mistake. And I would just do jobs like that in the same community that I had been cutting grass. So a lot of people had seen me around for a long time. I would refer back to that business that I used to have, so people would recognize me there. So anyway, it grew and it grew and it grew. Lifestyles Unlimited contacted me, which is a real estate investment group, and wanted me to go up and do some speaking events and basically talk to people about how to do make readies, some shortcuts, that kind of stuff. They wound up not wanting to pay me, but wanting me to keep coming back. So they did an exchange where they did a preferred vendor contractor group. And on their website, all the recommendations, everybody in that entire investment group was referred to me as the contractor, which was great. Except it kind of expedited me learning how a lot of these investment groups work. And that's that they are selling the idea and not the reality. And unfortunately for me, I was in the position where I had to deal with the reality, because when they would come to me and say, I need this place fixed for 20 grand and it's 40, I would have to say, okay, sorry, there's your outer envelope that you need to stop the place from leaking. There's your life safety, and then you're out of money. You don't have any money for, lipstick and jewelry or makeup of any sort. You're just kind of done on that. And it just got to the point where I realized, it's not these ignorant investors. It's these people that are teaching these investors who are ignorant. The investors are ignorant because they're being taught ignorant stuff and they're paying you for it. So then I went to investor group, and it was all basically the same. So I said, forget this, I'm done. Started working for nothing but developers. Worked for a bunch, built a PGA rated golf course, built 4 80,000 square foot buildings, 4 story over in Pearland, bunch of almost a million square foot of retail. One of the developers I worked for wound up getting federal charges for stealing $24 million from a bank out of California. They ripped off almost every contractor that worked for them. And of course, when they are facing federal charges, those contractors are all just screwed. They can't get any
Yeah.
money. The bank's getting their $24 million before any contractor. So I lost. I won, but I lost. And that was when I said, okay, I'm done. It's about $700,000 is what I lost. And so I
Oh,
said, I'm out. I can't be a contractor anymore for developers. I can't be a contractor for investors. And so I said, I'm going to become a consultant. And so that's what I did. I just started consulting. People paid me cash up front. I gave them whatever advice they wanted, repositioning, deferred maintenance. Um, a real estate investment trust would contact me, sign like 6 month, 9 month contracts where I'd go through every single one of their properties. I'm an accredited inspector, so I'd go through and tell them what they're missing, what their deferred maintenance is, what issues they have, what they could do to upgrade the property to get more value out of it. So I did that for a bunch of years. And all this time, I was also investing in real estate. I just didn't consider myself a real estate investor because I'm just a dumb contractor. I was on the registry. We had a registry in the state of Texas for dumb contractors a few years back. And then they disbarred that thing or got rid of it, for whatever reason, which we could get into that. But I mean, you can't have a board full of contractors trying to figure out if contractors are doing the right thing or not because they're going to side with contractors. But
yes.
basically I just kept kind of working my path and trying to get to be the best that I was at where I was. And then, now in hindsight, looking back, it was really, I didn't learn anything new. Like I knew the developers that I was working with were not quite on the up and up. You can tell when you're talking to people, and all certain people are more shady than others. And now in hindsight, when I look back at my path, I think, okay, well, the way that I got here is not, oh, well, this group disappointed me, so I moved on. So this group disappointed me, so I moved. I thought that's what it was. But now in hindsight and looking back, I can see that I was just bored. I became basically the best of what I could be in that area where I was. There was no room for advancement. It was just that's it. And I really realized that whenever I went to school to get my accreditation as an inspector, because it was like the third day in class that I realized that everybody in there was kind of deficient in any construction knowledge at all, zero. Like they didn't know what a fascia board was. Nobody in the whole class. And so I realized, okay, these guys are showing up and they're reading a code book. So all these years I've been in construction, I've been scared of these guys showing up and being like, I'm the code inspector, or code enforcement. Now, after that class, and they show up and they're like, I'm code enforcement. I'm like, that's awesome, man. I really respect that. Can you show me in the book where it shows that I have to do that thing by code? Because that's what you can enforce. And if it's not in that, can you please get off my job site? And that's it. There is no more nerves. There is no more, because I've now at the top of that point. And so I've learned that in construction, there is no path. You can start out as a plumber. You can start out as an apprentice. You can start out as a handyman. And because of the fact that there's a right to work state, you get all those abilities. The negative thing is that there is no way to report these things. Like someone can just keep changing their business name. They can just pay Better Business Bureau $250, get, oh, I'm an A+ rated contractor, and 6 months later, just do it again and again. And I think that part is very unfortunate because it gives a lot of contractors a bad reputation. But honestly, I've had thousands of contractors that I've hired, and I've never had to sue one. And I've had to sue a lot of clients for not paying me. So it tells you
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
rumor of contractors being scam artists. I mean, yeah, there's scam artists in every industry whatsoever. And if you try to go hire the cheapest person, then you're probably going to get scammed. If you're trying to hire someone who's clearly a painter and you're hiring them to do the GC work and they're, tens of thousands less than everybody else, well, you're not going to force them to do that job. They're going to figure it out and so it's really, about relationships and knowing who can do what and how. and going to someone and saying, hey, listen, you made a huge mistake. How do we fix that without me suing you for 50 grand because you pulled up in a 1997 Isuzu Rodeo? You don't have 50,000, you know? And I've had guys that have worked for me for literally years, painting, carpentry, whatever it is they had to do to pay off that debt that they had because I didn't want to sue them. There's no point in me suing them. It's going to hurt them. It's going to upset them. And I just do a deal. I'm like, hey, I'll give you half what you normally would get. The other half goes towards your debt. Hey, I got a lot of jobs. You do a lot of jobs. Let's make it happen. And that's helped. Customers aren't like that, though. Homeowners aren't like that. Homeowners are like, this is my house. The amount of times that I meet with contractors that have been ripped off and will tell me stories about just walking away from 100,000, 200,000, especially after storms and people get all their insurance money. It's like the second that people
Oh,
get an insurance check. Yes.
they forget all the work you did.
Yeah, that they forget. Not only do they forget, but I've heard recently multiple stories about like someone will in a neighborhood will hire someone because there's like a pipe break, and then 3 or 4 neighbors all hire that same GC, and then together they collude to not pay that GC because they'll go out of business if they don't get paid by anybody, and then how can they sue them? See, that's that I could tell you
Yeah.
hundreds of stories of people colluding to screw the next person. Like it's rampant in the
No,
other
I agree.
side of it. I don't see very much of that in the contracting side. Um, I think there's a lot
No,
of
I agree. I agree.
that was a very long answer to a very short
So
question.
tell me a little bit more about your company. So how does your company actually work and who do you actually work for?
So now I'm a consultant. I do basically project evaluations, all kinds of different project
Okay.
evaluations. So and real estate investment trusts, like I said, will hire me. Investment groups will hire me. Acquisition groups will hire me. So I'll go out and do property evaluations. And basically, what I do is I'm looking at it from multiple standpoints. Realistically, I'm looking at it like I want to buy the property myself. That's my positioning. Is I'm always looking at it as if I'm the investor, if I'm buying it, how would I put this deal together for me? So when I go and look at it, I'm looking at all the construction numbers. I'm looking at the comparables of what this building should be. So let's just say a commercial structure. If someone buys like an old Kroger building that has been decommissioned, I'll go in there and I'll do like a best use. What's it going to cost to reposition? Put new fascia, new facade, redo the parking lot lights. What do we need to do to bring it up to code? What kind of can we break some of this into white box spaces so that they're ready to rent, move in ready? What are those costs going to be? So I basically put the entire deal together because, frankly, what I have found is that the thing that stops deals from happening is people just don't want to deal with it. They just don't want to deal with the trades. They don't want to deal with the engineers. They don't want to deal with the architects, the permits. They don't want to deal with spending 3 hours on the phone with the city of Houston because, XYZ problem is happening. They don't want to, it's just sitting and waiting and getting hung up on and having to call over and over, being lied to by people. I mean, that's essentially what I do. I either give people the advice and say, here you go, here's all the tools you need. You can do everything on your own, enjoy yourself. Or they can hire me as a project manager. And a lot of times people don't. And the projects that I'm looking at, a lot of times they don't have the money to hire me as a project manager. So what they're doing is they're partnering with me. And what I then do is I take a percentage of the increased profit. So I take a property that's making $15 a square foot and I say, hey, I believe I can bring this property up to $21 a square foot. Here's all my math. Here's all my numbers. I will give you 40% of the increased profit only if I increase the profit. And then I'll go in and invest that capital to fix the property, or sometimes they have the capital, they just hire me to a consultant. I'm very fluid in what it is that I do. I'm trying to maximize the value of these because
Gotcha.
the reality is that when people know how much money they have, that maximum, then they can actually spend the money, then they can actually have a nice product. And to me, I've told customers for years, you're not hiring me, you're just the person paying me. The property itself is my client. I'm making sure that I'm getting the best value for the property. So if someone comes to me and says, let's just cover up that rotten wood, I say, okay, well, let's just go ahead and rip up my agreement because I'm out. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do anything that's
Gotcha.
going to compromise structure. I'm not going to do anything that's going to, I'm there to give the advice, which is a very I never even thought that would be a possible role because, when you're a contractor, you're like, here's my advice, here's my tips, here's what I think you should do. It's not the most expensive. And you're like begging people to do the right thing. Whereas now I'm like, here you go, here's the right thing. Do it or don't. I don't really care. I'm out. Bye. Have a good day. And then if they want to do it the right way, cool, I'll
If
do
you're
it.
going to hire me, we're going to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to go forward with me, we're only going to do the right thing. We're only going to pay painters at top rate. We're only going to pay roofers at top rate. You're not giving people, I hate when people say, well, I have 20 buildings, they should give me a discount. And I said, well, 20 buildings is like 2 years worth of work. So that means for the next 2 years, they should make less than what they would make if they went and did it for anybody else. And they're also the best, so they don't need to give anybody a discount. There's a lot of delusion on that side of the customer's always right, where the customer's an idiot. I mean, that's why they're hiring
Yeah.
experts and contractors. And if they were right and they knew what they were doing, they would just go to Home Depot and pick up their materials and do it themselves. So
Exactly. But the one thing I can tell you that, as everybody's nervous about the economy and everything in the future, from what I'm hearing, and all throughout COVID too, is that repair remodel contractors seem to have consistent work, whether that's commercially or residential. What are you seeing as far as those kind of contractors?
good contractors are always going to have work because, first of all, most of them are booked through that dip anyway. You got someone that's, a long ways out. Most contractors I know that are really good are 3-4 months down the road for any kind of sizable project. Now, there's different contractors at scale, obviously. So, like a bathroom remodel, stuff like that. But what I have found is that those people will always find the work because the work is still needed. Like plumbers are always going to be needed. AC guys are going to be needed. All those, standard trades. Let me fix my computer screen from making weird noises in the background here. But then on top of that, if you have a plumbing leak in your bathroom and there's going to need to be work fixed, you're going to have tile guys that are going to need to do work. So there's always going to be that. And then on top of that, during that dip, what a lot of people forget about when the market does slow down is you have all these savvy real estate investors that come along and say, hey, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start fixing up all these houses. So when the market goes back up again, I already have it. Because that's really what happens in that housing dip is all those people that lose their houses. Well, they're not just disappearing; they're moving into rental properties. And so, if they were in a $500,000 rental or $500,000 house, they might be moving into a $400,000 rental property, $250,000 rental property, and those properties are still going to need to be remodeled and fixed up and whatnot. Wondering what's in my background now. I hope it's nothing inappropriate.
Now it just looks like a blue screen.
Okay. All right. I don't know what's going on back there.
So do you personally have a lot of real estate like properties that you own and manage?
Yeah, I have a
Like
pretty decent portfolio.
yeah. So
Management is
how
most
involved
important.
are you in that?
I'm not really at all involved. Once it's set up, I think that the term passive income is not good, but I don't think there's any such thing as completely passive income. Because that's when I hear passive income, I think about Dane Cook, who used to have his brother manage all of his money for him, and then his brother stole all of his money from him, literally all of it, every time he had.
Yeah,
I mean, passive. You're standing on stage and doing some stand up. I mean, and your brother steals every dime you have. That's the same thing. There is no passive. If you just, I get about 2, maybe 3 calls a month from some investor, especially recently because of COVID. The COVID really screwed a lot of landlords.
Mhm.
And if you were a landlord who wasn't at your best, you weren't on top of things. I have 2 investors right now that both had strokes during COVID. And during that time, people weren't paying rent. Then when they did move out, they couldn't fix it up because they couldn't deal with it themselves. They didn't have the money. One of them has an 11-unit apartment complex, and 1 unit is rented out right now, paying rent, and they just started paying. So there's a lot of that people that are struggling because they just can't handle the problems. And that's what I mean. My slogan is I problem solve for profit because really that's all I'm doing. I'm coming in and You have an 11 unit apartment, you have one that's not rented. I mean, one that is rented. Well, what's your problem? It's first of all, it's management because you're not managing it. And that's why I say there's no such thing as completely passive income. Because if your apartment is set up properly and you've put a brand new roof on it and you've done a quality roof, you've done quality siding, quality windows, and all your workmanship is quality. The only maintenance should be like pressure washing it, maybe soft wash, whichever way you want to go there, cutting the grass, some landscaping, basic maintenance stuff, sink leaks, that you got to fix. But if you have your property set up in such a way that everything is as automated as possible. You did all of the extra work of spending all that extra money up front. It's a perfect example I use a lot is the metal roofs. Okay. If you're a landlord, most people don't want to spend twice as much money on a metal roof. But I ask, how long are you going to own this rental property? Because if you're going to own it for at least 30 years, that's how long your mortgage is. That's 2, maybe 3 roofs. So it's going to cost twice as much. The next roof you need, the next regular roof that you need 10, 15 years from now, it's going to cost as much as that metal roof now. But that metal roof has a 50-year warranty. So if you're going to own this property for the next 30, 40, 50 years, why not put a roof on it now that you're never going to have to put another roof on it? And then you're saving yourself that double the amount of money. I mean, you're paying for it in 15 years anyway. Just pay for it now. And that's kind of how I set all of my properties up, is that what can I do and where does it make sense? I'm not putting solar on a lot of my properties or any of my properties because it just doesn't financially make sense right now. The return on investment isn't there. Remember those old solar water heaters? It's like 15 years before you got your return on investment on those things. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So how do you keep up with the maintenance? Is that a full-time job, or you have people that help you with maintenance? How do you handle that?
Well, I have a maintenance sheet
Of your rental property.
scheduled maintenance of things that go on. So from grass cutting to pressure wash, soft wash. I mean, I get both of those things done every year on every property. If you spend the good money on the good caulking, the good paint, and the good siding, and you soft wash and pressure wash, you won't have to do it. You won't have to do any of those things again for a very long time. So I just have a maintenance list of all of the maintenance items that need to be done regularly for each property. And then, everything's automated these days. So you put that in your phone, it comes up on your calendar and on your schedule. And in a year, it says, hey, in a week, you got to soft wash these, properties. You got to do this to these properties. And then I just send out an email to the people that I work with to do those types of things. I work a little different. I don't have any employees. So what I do is every time I have something I need done, I put together a scope work, budget, everything, all the information as if it was an employee working for me. But then I just say, here's the entire thing. And then I'll send that out to 10, 15 different people and see which one can fit my budget, my timeline, and fit with what it is that I need done. And if they can do it, great, they do it.
Gotcha.
My name is Jeph Burnett. I'm with the Valhalla Ventures, reiguideservice.com, REIGUIDESERVIC.com. I'm on all the social medias, YouTube, at the Valhalla Ventures. I have a blog on my website that you can find tons of free articles. I think I have like 200 plus videos on my YouTube, kind of all over the place here. My Instagram is at the Valhalla Ventures, Twitter at the Valhalla Ventures. Pretty much all of them are at the Valhalla Ventures except my website, which is thevalhallaventures.com or reiguideservice.com. Either one of those work. You can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk to new people, give consultations on how to maximize profit, and that is why my slogan is problem solving for profit. Talk to you soon.